Chris, second time that I interview you. Like you were like a transatlantic guest, I think last year, and then finally, I meet you in person. Amazing. Saw you this morning at the gym. I got to say this online. It's like,
First time I've
I
been to
love
the gym
this.
in like a year.
I love seeing people taking care of themselves. So welcome to Vegas, man.
Thank you so much. It's great to meet you in person.
Thank you. So what we're gonna do here, we're gonna go through the 7 C's interview. Are you familiar with that? We start with the first one, and let's keep it real.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, so here are some words from Paul Auster, one of my favorite writers, that redefine the transatlantic voyage and the concept of traveling. People say you have to travel to see the world. Sometimes I think that if you just stay in one place and keep your eyes open, you're going to see just about all that you can handle. Now, you hail from South Africa, but have been in New York City for quite some time. Have you seen just about how you can handle? Or what about New York City challenge you and disorient you? Why are you still there in New York City?
I love your questions because first of all, you can answer them about 100 different ways. They're very poetic. I moved from South Africa to France, and I lived in Paris for 13 years. And then we had our kids in Paris, and their friends kept coming and going because their parents were on expat contracts. And we said we want to raise them in more of a kind of a stable, kind of like long-term relationship with their friends and stuff. And then the Frenchies also, they love New York. They either hate New York or they love New York. But when they used to say, if you can make it in New York in advertising,
everywhere.
It's like the MBA of advertising. So I went over to New York and I arrived. And I remember my first impression, I was like standing in the city looking at these canyons of buildings and the skyline being completely hidden by just buildings. And my fear actually was coming from Africa and coming from a role in France, which is more pan-European and global, my fear was to lose sight of the horizon. And so I've kept that with me the whole time. And it's interesting because a lot of friends that I have and acquaintances through work have lived and worked in New York for most of their career. And it's an incredible industry. It's very competitive, and you can make anything happen in New York. But my fear is sometimes you get a little bit myopic with focusing just on the New York.
What still challenges you about that city?
Yeah, I think sometimes it's too transactional. So sometimes the work becomes too transactional too. And I think these days with your audiences, if you're a brand, you've got to give them something that's valuable to them, that they feel compelled to give
What about as
back.
a human being?
Yeah,
Does it bother its transaction, or you find some sort of empathy and warmth in New York City?
The things I love about New York is the energy you can draw from it. You've got to be in the right state of mind, and you dive into this current that just sweeps you up and carries you away. And I love that about New York. And I love the people in New York because they think big, man. There's no boundaries. There's no limits.
Do you guys think different in South Africa?
I think we do, yeah. I think we do. And I think I grew up in an era of apartheid. And when I graduated college, that's when we came out of apartheid. So
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Cape Town to start with, and then I worked in Johannesburg for a long time. But, we entered the industry in South Africa almost wanting to prove ourselves to the world, because the country opened up and we were accepted back after Mandela was president, and that was an exciting time. But we always were at the southernmost tip of Africa, so we didn't have the same resources as America to do the same size ideas, so we had to be very creative with what we did.
In our industry, it's easy to stroll down memory lane. We try to look to the future, but the past is always there, a few inches away from us. There is no day that goes by where I don't read somewhere that advertising was better before, the work was more creative before. It's like finding yourself stuck on a return ocean course. You can't sail forward because it's a trap. So let's play this game. I give you the chance to free yourself. What would you be that thing from the golden age of advertising? You were in it, that you would gladly throw away and say, you know what, that wasn't better before.
Yeah, that's an amazing question. I mean, I've been racking my brain about that one. I think there's so many things that I just loved about like my whole career experience that I feel blessed to be in this
Right.
role. It's been such an incredible life experience, and I met so many friends and had so many unique experiences. But there are certain things that I didn't love, like stupid little things, like when I first started working, I had to do bromides
I love it.
to like mock up layouts, and it took
Like, who'd love to
days
do
and
that?
days to do
Yeah.
that, man. And it was so stressful because
You grew up as an art director.
I did.
And I remember all the art director back in the day, they had cut on their finger because they were always like,
I've got a scar right here with 2 stitches from like the scalpel like stabbing me through the hand. But I mean, and then like other things like, I remember when I first came over, I was working on a project with some people in New York, and I brought a pile of ideas with me from my agency in France, and the person running the project shifted them to the side and didn't even look at them. And somebody eventually said, "Oh, have you looked at those ideas from France?" And he said, "Oh, what, the foreigners' ideas?" And he dismissed them.
do you think it was easier back then as a young creative to find a job, to land a job, or it's harder now? What do you think?
It was easier. I
It was
think.
easier back
It was easier because the work was more exposed, because there were fewer channels. So if you made a great
Yeah.
idea,
People knew it.
people knew about it.
Yeah.
Nowadays, you can make a great idea, and it's not always the case.
Yeah, it's
There's,
true.
everything's
The
fragmented.
dispersion of like.
It's true.
Yeah, that's a good point, man. Okay, Andy Warhol hailed the ocean as the biggest abstract thing around and captured repeatedly in photographs. As a matter of fact, he was fascinated by most things he encountered, and nature was something he encountered increasingly as his career progressed. Now, is there anything that you have encountered in the advertising business as your career progressed and that caught your attention? It doesn't have to be a technology. I mean, if it is, so be it, but like, can be anything. But like, when you look back at your career up until now, is there anything that you bump into that you were really captivated by?
I'm going to give you just as deep a philosophical answer, because, I mean, I don't do this for a job. I do it because I feel like it's a calling, and it's an opportunity to make a change and influence the world in a positive way wherever we can. And we've got the power of brands to do that behind us. And so I think we've drifted. I think as a society we've drifted. I mean, I remember when I first arrived in Paris, somebody was freaking out because they found a flea in their apartment, and they'd never seen a flea before. And I came from Africa. I was like, come on, man. And so like, I think often people are quite detached from being grounded. And, coming from Africa, I feel like I've always got to have my feet firmly placed in nature. So, I mean, your metaphor about the ocean is my calling. I love the ocean. And I feel like, I surf, and whenever I'm in the ocean, I feel like I'm immersed in this energy of life. I know it
You do
sounds
Rockaway
cheesy.
Beach now because
I
where
do
do you surf?
Montauk.
Montauk.
Yeah,
It's true.
Montauk.
It's true. Montauk.
It
That's
gets
where you
pretty
surf.
good sometimes, actually.
Yeah, but winter, do you surf in the winter too?
It gets pretty cold. I mean, I've
Yeah.
tried now and again, but when it's snowing on the beach,
Yeah,
too
of
cold for
course,
me.
you can do it.
But I think, like, I've always tried to stay connected to the fundamental parts of life, because I think that reflects in the work. And if you can really put yourself in the shoes of other people and humanity and feel their pain, feel their suffering, feel their need, and you can help shape brands to actually give something that solves for that, you get to a much better place in marketing than if
Have you ever
used to.
found yourself like, because these are very noble principle and like very genuine, have you ever found yourself in a struggle while maintaining this principle and being like, being like in the gist of advertising, I mean, now you have like a very beautiful, fascinating role about when you were at TBW Sade, it's like it was one of the most like talked about for 2 years, like Sade New York, like you guys made it like really great, but it was literally it's the pinnacle of advertising. Like it must have been like a cutthroat environment. I mean, did you struggle to maintain this genuinity?
There's always politics in any place you're in, but I think if you follow your own compass in life and you meet like-minded people on the brand side, on the client side, there's enough momentum to make greatness out of. And the rest just sort of becomes white noise, to be honest.
That's good. Okay, so on August 1st, 2017, an article appeared in the New Yorker. It was written by Patti Smith to remember her dear friend Sam Shephard. The two of them went a long way back to the good old days at the Chelsea Hotel. Have you ever been to the Chelsea Hotel?
I haven't.
I actually went there. I was there I think like 10 years ago. A friend of mine stayed there, and I went to visit him, and it was an experience. They were like two roaring ocean, Patti Smith and Sam Shepherds, mixing waters, creating magic. Later in life, Sam picked up a strange habits. Patti Smith say he will call me late at night from somewhere on the roads, from a ghost town in Texas, a rest stop near Pittsburgh, or from Santa Fe, where he was parked in the desert listening to the coyote howling. Now, I found this habit fascinating, just picking up the phone and calling someone. If you were to accept a late night call from someone in the ad industry to share troubles and hope, who would that person be? Please answer, and then I'll tell you who I thought that you would answer.
That's interesting. I mean, that's a
In the ad industry, huh?
yeah. I mean, I was going to say, if the phone rings at night, the first thing I worry about is it's my son calling me from college. It's like got some problem that I got to solve for him or something. But so I'd be relieved, first of all, if it wasn't him.
Okay.
And then I think there's certain kindred spirits in this industry that you cross paths with now and again, and then you drift. And Eric Vervrogen, I love that guy, man. And
It's so interesting. I met him a few years ago. I had a coffee with him. I rode my motorcycle to Los Angeles. I was in San Diego at the time, and people kept telling me you need to meet this guy. He ride motorcycle. It looked like you guys love the same things, and it's true. It was very much like someone that could have been very good friend of mine.
Yeah, we were great friends. We still are great friends. I don't see him that often anymore, but we would connect and have a lot of deep conversations about what we do, why we do it, pushing the boundaries and the edge. We used to call it blade running creativity. And we had a whole sort of philosophy about finding the emotion of the idea and then pushing it to the edge of the blade so it almost falls off the other side. And I mean, I could speak for hours with that guy about the arts and the beauty and the poetry of what we do.
It's awesome. I thought you would say John Hahn. Because from being from
That's
South
another one.
Africa,
I mean,
how can you not name?
It's hard to just pick one person, right? I mean, there's a lot of people.
But growing up, I was a TBWA guy. I work at TBWA London, at Chad Los Angeles, and at TBWA New York, and so I was very familiar with the name of John Hahn. I never worked with him. I met him once at Clio, but I remember that everybody was of this person from South Africa.
Yeah, he's an incredible human being and a sage, a real kind of visionary. And he had the ability to walk into your office when you had we were working on a BMW brief, and you know what it's like when you're younger and nothing's good enough, and you've got to do better, and you've got all your ideas stuck on the wall, and you'd be all kind of nervous and insecure, and he'd walk in, and by the time he left, 40 minutes later, he would have talked your ideas up, and he would take them and sort of expand on them, and then give them back to you and let you own them to the point where you believe that you were this rock star creative. And
Awesome.
he had this ability to lift you up. I mean, some creative directors push you down and make you feel bad. Others lift you up. John's one of those kinds of people.
Brave New World is a dystopian social science fiction novel by English author Aldous Huxley. The novel opens up in the worst state city of London, where citizens are engineered through artificial wombs. It's a masterpiece of imagination knowledge. The thing about Aldous is that he was blind. Yet his blindness turned out to be a gift. He trained his brain to see things that he couldn't actually see. And so he poured all that knowledge into the stories. Now picture an ocean of imaginary thoughts that never stands still, but run through the mind like unstoppable currents. Has it ever happened to you in your career that a limitation that you had, that you possessed, turned out to be actually a gift?
I think the best work always overcomes a barrier, right? And I remember one piece of work that I was involved with that I'm very proud of was I was living in Paris at the time where same-sex marriage was still illegal. And we had Google as a client, and Google gave us this brief to bring to life some of their new technology. And they just invented Google Meets. And you could literally dial in and do a conference call. In those days, that was like revolutionary. And so we said, well, where is same-sex marriage legal? And it was just over the border in in Belgium, sorry.
Right.
So we said, well, why don't we just get a Belgian mayor to marry French same-sex couples on Google Meet? And so we did this sort of platform of defiance against the law, and we married, I can't remember how many now, but I think it must have been close to 30 or 35 couples on Hangouts.
You know, when I never been, this is very interesting story. I want to just like go back to the limitation things. Like you know, you come from a place of limitation, like South Africa. Part of the history is defined by limitation, but like listen to you speaking, like some of those limitations give you the strength. They actually transform you in strength.
You got it, man. I mean, I think that's trained from your own life experience. And it's funny, whenever I've gone to awards festivals and seen the winners, it's generally the countries that are facing the most limitations or tensions that do the most creative ideas. Because they're bolder and they take more risks, and they've learned to be braver, in fact, because it's quite scary to break a barrier.
That's true. There is a quote from Leon Cohen that stuck with me and got me thinking since the first time I read it. It goes simply like this: if you don't become the ocean, you'll be seasick every day. Now, I'm a fan of certain kind of quotes because they leave room for interpretation. They're like mute keyboards. You put the sound in them and you make them play the song that you want. After so many years in the advertising industry, have you become the ocean to not get seasick? In other words, has the industry forced you to change in order to survive?
I've seen so many people fall off the journey along the way because they've become so good at one thing and then they've stuck with it. And it's very easy to get complacent and comfortable in your sweet spot or your strength. And I think the best thing that can happen to any creative in their lives is to face constant change. Right. Because it forces you to reinvent yourself, and change is what drives creativity in a way.
So definitely Chris Garbutt's 2023 is a totally different type of creative from Chris Garbutt like 20 years ago.
Look, I carry a lot of the same kind of principles and foundational approaches to the way I do things, and I still think fundamentally what we do is designed for human beings and not for technology's sake. But I think the new tools we have set you free in a whole bunch of new ways that we couldn't have done before. And so right now we're at a very exciting moment in marketing and entertainment, because it's all converging, and there's this new kind of open space of creativity we can play in with AI and the metaverse and Web3 and all that stuff. So I'm excited.
Okay, last question. You are the president of the category digital and use of social media influencers. If I reference the impact that social media has on our lives, I'll probably end up sounding like a cliche. It's a never-ending topic that keeps getting analyzed, dissected, researched. On a smaller scale, it's like what happens when we ask if awards and recognition for our work are a good thing. So here's my question. What kind of impact have awards had on your career as a creative? And what have you gained from them, from picking up awards? Give me the most honest answer.
Yeah, and I will. I mean, I think awards are really important. I really do. I mean, you meet people in this industry that go, oh, it's not about awards and like chasing lions or chasing LIA. Often those people are cynical because they've never won much, and they actually quite scared about how difficult it is to win, I think. And the other thing that I think awards do is it constantly keeps you on your toes. There's nothing worse as a feeling than the day after you've won a Grand Prix, because you have to start again and you have to like try and reinvent the next one.
That's a true thing.
And like I get so much inspiration from seeing new shaped work, and these are the moments where we come together as an industry and actually draw focus on that. And Otherwise, that would get lost in culture in a way that we wouldn't always know where the industry is going or what the new possibilities are. It's a good reference point, and it's a good inspiration, I think, for everyone.
Chris, can thank you now for being part of like Ocean 17, and I wish like the best. I know that you're gonna be like a few days more like here in Vegas. Don't gamble yourself out of this industry. Thank you so much, man.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Chris, that was awesome, man.